From strange shapes to weird colors, some 1970s cars stood out for all the wrong reasons. While a few became classics, others are best left in the past. So, let's look at some of the ugliest cars from the decade because bad designs deserve a spotlight too. The Vanden Plas 1500 was basically an Austin Allegro dressed up to look fancy, but let's be real, it only made things worse. The Allegro was already an awkward-looking car, and British Leyland decided to slap on a huge, upright chrome grille, giving it a bizarre, out-of-place luxury touch. On the inside, they added leather seats, deep carpets, and even little fold-down walnut tables in the back, as if owners would be enjoying a fancy meal while waiting for a tow truck. Despite these upgrades, it was still the same underwhelming car underneath, just far more expensive. In fact, it costs nearly twice as much as a regular Allegro. It was like someone looked at a Jaguar XJ6 and said, "I love it, but can you make it smaller, uglier, and way less reliable?" British Leyland's attempt at budget luxury felt more like a joke, proving that slapping a posh grille on a bad car doesn't magically make it good. British cars have often been criticized for their odd looks, unreliable build quality, and less than impressive speed. We've seen examples like the Morris Marina and the Reliant Robin. But another one that deserves a mention is the 1970 Marcos Mantis, a car that had plenty of problems, starting with its price. It was expensive for its time, which made things worse when you realize that the Triumph TR6 looked better, performed just as well, and cost less. That alone made the Mantis a tough sell. Then there was the design. While some car brands take inspiration from powerful animals like Jaguars and Mustangs, Marcos decided to name their car after an insect, and honestly, it showed. The bug-eyed headlights and weird proportions gave it a strange, almost alien look. Even with a lightweight fiberglass body, modern chassis, and an optional Rover V8, people just weren't interested. In the end, only 117 were sold, and Marcos eventually shut down in 2007 after producing more cars with questionable designs. Do you remember when Chevrolet launched the Chevette in 1975? They proudly claimed it could compete with foreign compact cars. But in reality, European automakers were making cars that were not only better, but also much nicer to look at. That didn't stop General Motors from producing European versions of the Chevette, though. At first, people were hopeful, but reviews quickly changed. The Chevette was cheaply built, underpowered, and boring. It had a boxy, basic design that prioritized function over style. But despite its plain looks and weak performance, it still became a hit mainly because it was affordable and fuel-efficient. In fact, in 1980 alone. But let's be clear, the Chevette was not the stylish Chevelle. This was a small, front-engine, rear-wheel drive subcompact based on General Motors' European T-Car. Owners often complained about its weak engine and unreliable brakes, but for those on a budget, it got the job done. While critics have labeled it one of the ugliest cars of its time, its massive sales prove that sometimes practicality beats good looks. Moving on, we have the 1973 Reliant Robin, which is one of the strangest cars ever made. Designed by Ogle Design, the same team behind the Bond Bug, this three-wheeled oddball definitely turned heads, but not in a good way. With its awkward triangular shape and bug-eyed front end, it looked more like a cartoon car than something meant for real roads. Despite its weird looks, the Robin could reach speeds of 70 to 85 miles per hour, thanks to its 4-speed manual transmission. It was also lightweight and fuel-efficient, making it a practical choice for budget-conscious drivers. But let's be honest, the Robin was hard to take seriously. It looked like a car you'd buy only because you couldn't afford a real one. Even its predecessor, the Reliant Regal, had a tiny bit of dignity, but the Robin? It seemed almost too proud of its awkwardness. With its wobbly handling and toy-like design, it became the butt of endless jokes, especially in British pop culture. Love it or hate it, the Reliant Robin has a permanent, if slightly embarrassing, place in automotive history. Some cars weren't just ugly, they were also really weird, like the AMC Pacer was one of the weirdest looking cars ever made. AMC wanted to design a small car that was as wide as a big one, thinking it would be roomy inside but still easy to park. Instead, the Pacer ended up looking short, round, and completely out of place. One of its strangest features was the huge windows, which gave drivers great visibility but made them feel like fish trapped in a bowl. The car's odd shape didn't help either. It was too round at a time when most cars were boxy, making it stand out in a bad way. In 1978, AMC added a bulging hood and a tall grille to fit a V8 engine, but this just made it even stranger. Despite its weird looks, the Pacer had some good points. It was comfortable and even had a station wagon version for extra space. Over time, it gained a small fan base and became a cult classic. But no matter how much some people love it, the Pacer will always be remembered as one of the quirkiest and most unusual cars ever built. Ever seen a car that looks cool at first, but turns out to be a complete disaster? Meet the 1975 Bricklin SV1, a car that tried to be futuristic, but ended up being a nightmare on wheels. At first glance, you might think it's some DeLorean lookalike, but nope, this came first. It had flashy gull-wing doors, a wedge-shaped body, and a name that made it sound like a high-tech machine. But once you got past the fancy doors, the problems were hard to ignore. First, those massive bumpers made it look more like a toy car than a serious sports car. Then there were the tiny windows, making drivers feel like they were peeking out of a bunker. And let's talk about the build quality. It was awful. The body panels warped, the hidden headlights refused to open, and the electrical system was so bad that people sometimes got trapped inside. And those famous gull-wing doors? They were so heavy that they often broke under their own weight. In theory, the SUV1 should have been cool. In reality, it was ugly, unreliable, and a complete failure. Ever heard of it before? Exactly. Sometimes, people don't care about how a car looks, as long as it's affordable. That's where the AMC Gremlin comes in, a quirky little car that made a big splash in the 1970s. Built on a shortened Hornet platform, it had a unique design with a long hood and a chopped-off rear end, which, let's be honest, wasn't the most attractive thing on the road. With a name like Gremlin, you knew it wouldn't win any beauty contests, but it had something else going for it. The Gremlin wasn't about speed, it was about fuel economy. It was affordable, costing about 2/3 of what other small cars did, which made it a hit for budget-conscious buyers. Despite its unusual looks, the Gremlin found a loyal fan base, and people loved how cheap and practical it was. While it might not have been a car you'd show off, it was perfect for those who just needed a no-nonsense ride. Over its 8-year run, AMC sold 671,000 Gremlins, proving that sometimes people just want a cheap, reliable car, no matter how it looks. Sure, it wasn't the most stylish, but the Gremlin was a hit for its time, and that's what counts, right? Now Ford has shaped the car world in countless ways, from the iconic Ford Mustang to the popular Ford Fiesta. But not every car in their history has been a success. Enter the Ford Pinto, a car that's infamous for all the wrong reasons. In the 1960s, American car buyers were starting to notice smaller, fuel-efficient cars from Japan and Europe. Ford wanted a piece of that action, so they created the Pinto, a car that was lightweight, cheap, and aimed to compete with the likes of the Volkswagen Beetle. But the Pinto's creation wasn't as smooth as planned. Launched in 1971, it was sold for just $1,850, about $17,845 today, making it affordable. But soon, serious safety issues started to surface, especially in rear-end crashes where the Pinto was prone to catching fire. By 1977, these problems made headlines, leading to investigations and lawsuits. In 1978, Ford was slapped with a $3.5 million settlement after the infamous Grimshaw Ford case. Worse, in another case, Ford became the first company convicted of criminal charges over defective cars. Though Ford has moved on from the Pinto disaster, it's a reminder that corners cut for speed can lead to serious consequences. Which car do you think was even worse than the ones we discussed? Let us know in the comments. Also, share your experiences with us. We'd love to hear them. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to support our channel. Until next time, stay safe.